What's going on YouTube? Phil here, back with another video. So it's Friday morning here and I've got a quick break before work starts and I just thought I'd do another update. So what I wanted to talk about today is polarity on semen retention. So you're going to polarize people, and that means there's all this talk about female attraction on semen retention, but for all these instances of people who are attracted to you, there's going to be people who are really repulsed by you, or you just pick up haters, basically, is probably the best way to say it. It doesn't mean they full on there, they have a reason to hate you, but they're just put off by you, threatened by you, intimidated by you, or whatever behavior of that nature. But, if you're a man and, if you're a man, you haven't been successful or achieved any fame or notoriety or whatever, you probably just have moved through life pretty much invisible. And I know for a long time, especially as a young man, I just felt invisible, uh, particularly to women, but basically to everybody. No one cared. No one cared at all when I was a young person, like teenager. No one was interested, and that went well on into adulthood. No one seemed to care what I did one way or the other. I wouldn't turn heads when I walked into a room. Nobody would notice what I was doing. No one seemed very interested. And that really used to trigger me and upset me. And, because I just felt like I was nobody. I felt invisible, unwanted, just like nothing I did mattered, essentially. And then, since I've gotten older and I've had more success and, done semen retention and worked on myself a lot, as you see an improvement and you start to improve your energy, your success levels, and more importantly, become happy with who you are as a man and a human being, people's behavior towards you changes. But what you got to understand is everything in the universe is trying to achieve balance. So if you're going to have attraction, especially, let's talk about the female attraction real quick, because that's what so many people are, one of the first things they're talking about when it comes to SR. But like I've talked about in another video how I think that's a trap. If you're doing it for female attraction, you're in it for the wrong reasons, and that's going to become a trap, and that's going to lead you into relapse before too long. So don't do it for the female attraction. Do it for the good, clean energy that you feel and to improve yourself as a man. That's enough said about that. But obviously, when you do semen retention, you're going to have these benefits, but you're also going to have the drawbacks. There's pros and there's cons to everything. The universe always trying to establish balance. So if you're creating a positive effect with some people, the natural way of the universe is some other people are going to respond negatively to you, and you just have to take the good with the bad. So if you look at a famous person, so I recently read Mike Tyson's bio, his autobiography. It's written by him, and obviously Mike Tyson was probably the most famous man on the planet for quite a while, and he was hugely successful, heavyweight champion of the world for years and years. All this fame, hundreds of millions of dollars as a young man, tested beyond belief. The tests he had to go through, and a lot of them he failed. But he's a young man. He's trying to find his way. But super rich. He just had all this fame, fortune, women, everything you could possibly want as a young man. And he didn't come from a background where he had good mentors and supportive family. He came from a pretty poor background, and he didn't have family invested in nurturing him to become a spiritual, a good human being on a spiritual path. He sort of really had to find his way under the immense pressures of all that. And his story is absolutely crazy. So the highest highs and the lowest lows, like winning the championship of the world in boxing, being the champ, and all the money that comes with that, all the glory, the constant adoration, the women, the success, the parties, the respect, all of that. But also what people don't realize, and what he goes into a lot in this autobiography, is how much hate he got. And, there were people just constantly after him. He couldn't go anywhere without someone trying to exploit him. He'd be at a club and then some lady would try and bump into him and cause an altercation and then sue him. He had people suing him constantly, always after his money. His wives and girlfriends were trying to exploit him for his money. Everyone was trying to take a piece of him. So this is like the real extreme end of that scale. It's like the extreme celebrity scale. So they have all this fame, but there's also the dark side of celebrity, which people probably don't focus on enough. Um, Especially as young men, we all get sort of pressured through the culture, like, get money, get fame, like the Scarface quote: first you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the women. Like, just really immature um, cultural conditioning like that. And that's sort of how the culture's set up, especially for men, but women get roped into this too. But, with fame and with any sort of, and even on a micro level, like you'll start to experience that on semen retention, because people, as soon as people start to notice you, you get a bit of attention or notoriety depending on how they view you, and they're going to respond to you. It's not possible for people to notice you and not have a response. They don't just notice you indifferently. If it was an indifferent response, they wouldn't notice you at all. They're going to notice you one way or another. There's a whole spectrum of this, but it's generally going to be either a positive response or a negative response. And it's not always clear if they're responding to you positively, like if the attention they give you is because they're trying to exploit you, or they're ignoring you, but they actually don't have, you know, animosity or bad feelings towards you. It's not always clear, and this is what you have to get good at on semen retention. And this is something I'm struggling with at the moment. People just start reacting to you, and they're going to react one way or the other, and you really need to start looking at what they're doing. Like, you have to notice that they're reacting, because for a long time I just walked through the world, I was invisible, I never had to deal with any of this stuff. But now people are reacting, and often it's subtle, and particularly with women, it's subtle. You've really got to notice how people are reacting to you as soon as you walk in a room and calibrate accordingly. And you may need to adjust. I don't mean change who you are, but, people are going to see you as someone worthy of respect. And then if you don't behave in a way that's, they're basically putting you above them. They're putting you a little bit on a pedestal. If you then act the way you used to act, as if you're invisible, it's like, well, it doesn't matter what I do, I just rock into a room, I don't have to talk to anybody because nobody's going to notice me anyway. If you do that when you have more attention and this like microcosm of fame, people may judge you. And yes, it's their judgment, and that's ultimately their responsibility and their problem, but it can impact you. Let's be real. We all interact with people throughout everyday life, and there's constant interactions going on all the time, and the status dynamics are changing and shifting throughout conversations and interactions. So you need to sort of be aware of that. So people are going to react to you, and you can't just sit there as if you're invisible and you're having no impact. You're going to start, your energy is like broadcasting subconsciously. People can feel it, even it's not verbal, it's not spoken, although it can bleed into the verbal. A lot of this is non-verbal sub-communication I'm talking about, the way body's language, the way people will stand, tone of voice, all these things, where they're looking, where their feet are pointing, all these sort of like body language clues, and you start picking up all these choosing signals from women or dismissing signals from women. And you haven't changed anything except your energy, but this is a massive change. This actually changes everything, because you're working from the bottom up rather than trying to work top down and trying to change these superficial things and hoping that changes your life. This is changing it at the root level. And that's just going to change everything, and it can change really quickly, and you might not be ready for the responses you're getting. So I'm just saying, be aware of how people are responding to you. You're going to have to, if you've never looked at like body language before and nonverbal communication, study that a little bit. You're going to have to study, like hand gestures, body position, all the way people are looking, tone of voice, just how they're reacting to you in a situation. Because then if you don't calibrate, then that interaction can flip around on you and give you a result you didn't want. You're like, well, I'm just doing what I've always done. It's like, you can't anymore. You're a new person now. You're literally a different person. You can't continue to act as if you were the old invisible you now that you've got all this attention. It won't work. It's going to end badly for you if you continue to ignore this. Don't ignore your new energy. It's really, it's like disruptive. When you walk into a room, you're disrupting the energy. And you may be the biggest energetic force in that room. You probably are now, and you've never had that before. And if you just act oblivious to that, people may start labeling you as disrespectful, cold, even rude, which you're not. You're just living your life, you're being you, but you're not the old you anymore. You're the energized you. You're literally a new person. And you kind of have to give that the respect and the care and attention that deserves. I'm not saying excuse poor behavior. You definitely don't have to submit to anybody's bad behavior or intentions, or let them coerce or manipulate you into anything. But be aware that you're now having a completely different energetic effect on those around you. And this can play out in all sorts of interesting ways. So the last video I made about, these staff at the local drive-through were really, really rude to me for no reason. And I wasn't aware of how they may have perceived me. I think what happened was I came in with all this energy. I was dressed really nice, and I may have been a little like, I was cold. I just wanted to get home and get this done. And they may have perceived that as, this guy's just an asshole. And that may have been, and that's not what was happening. I wasn't rude, but I might have been a little bit businesslike. But more than that, nobody used to care if I used to do that before. All I wanted was some service, and it just turned into this whole thing. They got abusive, and I couldn't understand it at the time. I was like, what is going on here? And it was only afterwards I realized, oh, they were responding to my energy. And, I went out dancing recently, and playing that back, there were a couple of scenarios in my mind where I was getting these choosing signals from women, and I'm quite oblivious. Like, I used to be a nerd. I used to be like in computers and IT, and I really didn't understand male-female dynamics and any of the subtle choosing signals that women send. But in hindsight, I actually got a few choosing signals there, and I wasn't looking, for female attention. But it's almost like, if you as a man ignore choosing signals, that's almost disrespect to a woman. You're like dissing her, because she's like, I obviously made a pass at you, or I threw myself at this guy, and he ignored me. And to some women, you ignoring them is the same as, because to them it's obvious. It's as if they went up and said, oh, hey, how's it going? And you just snub them. That's how some of them interpret it. So be aware of that. And this is going to sound crazy if you're not used to the way this works. Women will interpret ignoring as a lack of respect. And to a man, that's just mental. Like, a lack of respect would be like a guy gets in your face, it's quite overt and obvious, and usually mapped out with conversation. With women, it's not necessarily. And not even just with women, but with other people. There may just be a non-verbal thing that happened that you didn't pick up on, and they're going to take that as this guy actually, rightly or wrongly, they perceive it as disrespect, and it can flip the interaction. So just be aware of it, bros. Just be aware of it. You're going to polarize people on semen retention. It's an inevitable consequence of what you're doing now. Your energy is being noticed. It's like a beacon shining in the darkness. People are going to notice it. Some are going to be moths like flame, and they're going to literally bump into you. This happened at dancing. This woman like bumped into me. Like, she put her hand on my hand, like accidentally put her hand on my hand. I was resting it. It wasn't an accident. It was the energy, mate. So just subtle little things like that, and these are going to keep happening to you, and the longer you do it, the more they're going to happen, and the more obvious they're going to be. So just be aware of it. You're polarizing people constantly, and you need to be aware of how they're responding to you, and you kind of need to calibrate your response to their response. Everybody's reacting to reactions a little bit, but you can't go in oblivious, and you can't ignore the fact that you're a new person with this new energy, and you're going to have to adapt to this, for better or for worse. And there's pros and cons, there's positive and negatives to this stuff, but just be aware. Okay, so that's the video today. I don't want to make this too long. I've got to pop off to work. I'm going to pick up something for my new car. New car's awesome, by the way. Super grateful for my new car. I'm loving it. I'm going to try and take it to the beach in the next week. And I may even do a video from my new car. So if you're listening, thanks for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe. Particularly drop a comment below. Would love to hear what you're going through. If you're on the semen retention journey, doesn't matter if you're 1 day, 10 day, 100 days, 1,000 days, or you're just thinking about starting, drop a comment below. We're all in this together, and I'll see you on the next video.